What's good, YouTube? We're talking college sports in the Deep South where college football is king. And down in East Alabama where Auburn University rests, we like to call that place the loveliest village on the plains, where the battle cry is War Eagle. What's going on, Fearless and True Gang? Let's get this comment section active. Early this morning here on YouTube, go ahead and like the video, comment, of course, your opinions of things, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports, Auburn. Now, this morning we're going to be talking about Boobie Whitlow. His real name is Jatarvious Whitlow, out of Lafayette, Alabama. As a matter of fact, Boobie Whitlow turned heads as a high school football star. He was also played basketball as well. Pretty talented athlete that played basketball as well. And his senior year, he had over 2,000 yards passing and 2,000 yards running the football, garnishing him the 2A running back or the 2A back of the year. A viable dual threat quarterback. And all indications showed that he was headed to Tulane, but got a last minute call from Chip Lindsey. Chip Lindsey saw some things talent-wise to where Chip Lindsey thought that Boobie Whitlow would be a nice fit for Chip's offensive scheme. As a matter of fact, Boobie Whitlow came on in 2017, battled some injury, so he was redshirted the first year. But when he was able to recover during the practices leading up to the UCF game, turns out Boobie Whitlow was turning some heads and showed some surprising skill set as a running back for the Auburn Tigers. Made a lot of great plays during that particular series of practices, and earned him the starting spot in 2018 as a running back for the Auburn Tigers. A very unlikely move. I mean, as a matter of fact, when Jatarvious was recruited, I wasn't too sure if, we were ever going to hear from him again, and that's my bad. It turns out the young man has really made a name for himself at Auburn up to this point. Now, we want to know moving forward, though. Auburn failed to have a 1,000-yard back on last season. As a matter of fact, Jatarvious came the closest with 700 yards. But the running game for the Auburn Tigers last year was inconsistent at best, not producing too many 100-yard games. So we got a few questions going into the 2019 season. If Jatarvious Whitlow has the overall it factor to be an elite running back at Auburn. And we're talking about, this is not something that's easy. This is a fraternity that is you're not easily initiated into. You're talking about the likes of Bo Jackson, James Bostic, many others that I know I'm not naming right now. Carnell Williams, Ronnie Brown, Brad Lester, Kenny Irons, Trey Mason, Michael Dyer for the year. He had the incredible season as a national championship running back. Trey Mason, Cameron Petway for a year. Kerryon Johnson just recently. These are names of guys who really, Peyton Barber, a 1,000-yard rusher for Auburn. These are guys that banged it out pretty much every week. And we're talking about also within the physicalities of the SEC. So we got a few questions as far as, all indications say that Boobie Whitlow will be the starter this year and will be the starter that is more than likely to be a 1,000-yard rusher. But what we want to know, we just got a few questions, like I said before, as it relates to this. Now, the number one question I have, the first question I have is he durable enough for SEC play? Okay, so Boobie Whitlow had battled some durability issues. Looks like he favored his shoulder a lot, and this is going to be a physical task because Gus Malzahn likes to run the running back very often. You have situations where it's possible that you can get as many as 30 carries under a Gus Malzahn run offense. Does Boobie Whitlow possess the long-term physicality to be able to do this? Especially having to show up big time in high-level SEC competition. Also, you're talking about Oregon in the Advocare Classic. That's going to be a physical game as well, although, I've been getting kind of beat up in the comment section that Oregon is not, as physical as an SEC team, and that's up for debate. But nonetheless, with Mario Cristobal, with his SEC ties, he has recruited to where his teams are going to be a lot more physical. That's one of the questions that I have for Boobie Whitlow coming into this 2019 season. Is he durable enough? And number two, has the ball protection improved? Now, we did see deliberate clutching of the football as he crossed the goal line in the Purdue game, but ball protection was really costly for Boobie Whitlow this past year. We're talking about a situation where the Mississippi State game probably could have turned out a little bit differently. We're talking inches away on a long touchdown, a very nice run, but was contacted right before the goal line and fumbled the football. It was very questionable, could have gone either way, but you just don't want to cut it that close. And which leads me to another thing about the breakaway speed. Boobie Whitlow, it's great runs, but he's getting caught from behind. You got to go ahead and cross the goal line. Go ahead and get that breakaway speed going to where once you get out in the open field, you're not getting caught from behind, because that's where a lot of his fumbles came from, were from behind, where, a lot of times you can't anticipate the ball being knocked out when you can't see the defender coming, okay? Also, we got a few more questions for Boobie Whitlow. Has his technique transitioned to be a traditional every down back? Now, there were some times last season where, his techniques were a little, you could tell that, he was kind of going off of raw talent. Didn't have a lot of the fluid skills that the traditional running back would have, but nonetheless made some very good plays, made some very good moves. But we did see in the spring game that you can tell certain techniques as far as, steps wise, he had been coached out of those unnecessary steps going into the spring training. I really like what I saw out of Boobie Whitlow. Looked like a very much smoother runner. Looked like he was a lot more comfortable at the running back position, and didn't feel like he kind of got that heroic mentality out of him. He was trying to be a hero. I think at times last year he was trying to do too much, but I think now he can go ahead and, with the coaching of Carnell Williams, go ahead and solidify himself as a solid running back technique-wise. Also going into the 2019 season, some more questions we have. Does he have the mental toughness to be a traditional Auburn back? Now, like I said before, in that third quarter, fourth quarter, where the game is on the line and you really need a reliable running back, just look at film on Trey Mason. It seemed like Trey Mason got stronger as the game went along, and that's what Boobie Whitlow is going to have to possess if he's going to be that elite running back for the Auburn Tigers and in the SEC. Because like I said before, Boobie Whitlow had 3 100-yard rushing games, and only one of those against LSU, so he was really not as productive as you want your feature back to be in the big game, and mind you, due to injuries. But when you talk about just using Trey Mason and Kerryon Johnson as an example, those guys had 8 games where they had 100 yards or more, and they showed up big time in the SEC games. As a matter of fact, Trey Mason had a game where he had as many as 300 yards, and that's almost half of what Boobie Whitlow produced this season. So what we're going to be looking for is a lot more production yardage-wise out of Boobie Whitlow, because if he's going to be an elite running back at Auburn, you're looking at his predecessors with 8 games with 100 yards or more. This past season, only 3 games for Boobie Whitlow with 100 yards or more. Of course, that stat is going to have to improve if he's going to have the elite status running backs-wise for the Auburn Tigers. And last but not least, we're talking leadership. When you're talking about one of the best Auburn running backs, you have to put the team on your back. The best example that I've seen in recent history of this was Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson literally carried the team on his back and said, hey, look, I want the ball in my hands, and I want to lead these Tigers to victory, and that's exactly what he did. Up until his shoulder injury, Kerryon Johnson was arguably one of the hottest running backs in the country in 2017 during that late season stretch for the Auburn Tigers, which is by and large why Auburn was able to defeat Georgia and Alabama, both of whom were number one at the time when Auburn and Georgia, at the time that Auburn met both of those teams. And what we're going to be looking for is whether Boobie Whitlow possesses that type of leadership, that type of ability to lead a team like Auburn to victory, especially with a pivotal year that the 2019 season is. All right, guys, let's go ahead and leave the comments in the comment section. Tell me what you think about Boobie Whitlow, or what questions you may have for Boobie Whitlow coming into the 2019 season. Of course, the Fearless and True Gang and the Auburn fan base does not take the running back position lightly. So go ahead and leave your comments. Like I said before, go ahead and like this video. Also, subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. We're talking Boobie Whitlow today. Until next time, War Eagle.